Welcome to Triple T and Me. Today, my special guest is Mr. Steven Beckman. He is a wonderful friend from high school. We'll get into that, but we have been able to stay in touch. I'm grateful for that. And now he's a teacher, so I'm looking forward for him to share a little bit about that. But how you doing today, Steven?
Hi there. Yeah, nice to talk to everybody. And Tyler, thanks for having me on. Quite the honor. But not bad. Just trying to get adjusted to all of this virtual distance learning teaching stuff. It's a little bit of a change, but making progress. And due to the quarantine, staying healthy so far. So that's a good deal.
That's great. Well, I know it's definitely a different time, especially for teachers and students. First, I want to talk about our friendship. Do you remember when we first met, man?
Yeah, man, of course. So it was on I guess I was in 7th grade, you were in 8th grade, a middle school field trip to Paoli Peaks. So seemed like I had fallen down, and you had helped me up. So, and then we just kind of went from there. But yeah, we met at Paoli Peaks on a school field trip. So everybody watching, take advantage of those school field trips when you go. Not only do you have the opportunity to learn, you never know when new friendships will blossom.
I love it. Yeah, that was a fun trip, and I just remember hanging out pretty much the whole day once we ran into each other. So it was good. And
very true.
Unbeknownst to us, that friendship would last until present day, and I'm grateful for that.
That's true. Hard to believe that's already been, 15 years ago probably. It's crazy how time flies, but I agree. Very, very fortunate.
So in our years of being friends, what's some memories that come to mind?
I remember when you went to Johnson College, I came to visit you. Seems like twice. Mm-hmm. And then I remember meeting several of your friends. Gary was one of them. And then you had another friend that I met, Rich. But yeah, meeting them, that was super cool. I think we went and saw the movie The Incredible Burt Wonderstone, if I remember correctly.
Good memory.
Yeah, so that was pretty good. Got to check out a little bit of downtown Knoxville, Tennessee, which was super cool. Really liked that. We went to several sporting events together. That's been really cool, including a IU football game and a couple. Oh, we went to the Indianapolis 500, and I think we went to 2 NASCAR races, if I remember correctly. So that's been a lot of fun. Another thing that was fun, this is going way back. In high school, we were in an organization called BPA together. We got to go to a state conference in Indianapolis. And I think that same year we went to a student council state conference, which I feel like every time we get together, you remind me of a quote that the honorary speaker mentioned. But those are some of the first things that come to mind. Would you like to share that quote? I'm afraid I've forgotten it.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing those memories. But yes, that quote was, you say whatever the day is, like, so today would be May 5th, 2020. So you'd say, hey, this is the only May 5th, 2020 that you'll ever get. And I just like that, to really encourage people to make the best of every day that they're blessed with. So that's why that stuck with me.
I completely agree. I probably didn't see it as much then, but it's so accurate. Since you're only going to get one May 5th, 2020, do the absolute best on this day that you can. Leave this day with no regrets. So it was really well said.
Yes, a lot of good memories, man. I'm thankful for our friendship, thankful for the Bristol race we got to go to twice, and I enjoyed it. And that's why I wanted to make that my background of Mark Martin, because I know he's your childhood hero, and I do not know anybody that is a bigger fan of NASCAR. Now, I know you're a fan of a lot of things, hence your background, Harry Potter, movies, reading, but I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, but NASCAR is probably the one thing that you follow the most outside of work and all that.
Yeah, I would say that's very accurate. Yeah, even I have a little bit of NASCAR stuff over here, so
Okay.
a little bit of NASCAR stuff still in this room that I'm in currently. But yeah, a lot of hobbies I have. You know, I'm really into Harry Potter. I'm really into studying about our former presidents of the United States. A lot of TV shows, a lot of books I love to read, but NASCAR is definitely my favorite hobby, and that has definitely continued through the years. I've been a little bummed that they haven't raced um, since early March, but obviously due to the safety concerns of the COVID-19, I understand. But May 17th, NASCAR is coming back in live action at Darlington, South Carolina. I'm pretty excited. I honestly cannot wait for that. And my favorite driver for probably the last 10 years, Matt Kenseth, who retired a few years ago, he is coming out of retirement to race. So I'm so excited for that.
That's awesome. So, how are they doing that? Like, is it only going to be half the capacity of the stadium just to be careful, or what's their plan?
So at least for the first 8 races, there's not going to be any fans in attendance. Each team is only allowed to have 15 people, so that includes the driver, the owner, the crew chief, and the pit crew members. And I know 15 sounds like a lot, but like some of the bigger teams, like a Kyle Busch, like his car would often have like 60 or 70 people from his team at the track. So now they're only going to be allowed to have 15. So that's a pretty big deal. They're not going to have live interviews. So whoever wins, it'll literally be an interview like this. And all of the camera people, they'll be scattered throughout the racetrack. They won't be able to interact with each other. The spotters, they're the people up on top of the grandstands who basically tell the drivers, like if there's a wreck, they have to be 6 feet apart from each other. Even like the drivers, like their haulers, which brings their cars to the track, they usually park right next to each other. They're going to scatter them throughout the whole infield because there won't be fans allowed in the infield now. So it's going to be very, very different, to say the least. It's gonna look like a ghost town at the racetrack. So kind of strange.
Well, it's great that it'll be able to start back up, but it's great that they're taking precautions too, to prevent another wave of the COVID-19 in our country. So that's nice to know that they're doing that and not just rushing back into normal life, because that could be dangerous.
No, absolutely. And they're taking more safety precautions than that. For instance, the few people who do work in the pit, so the pit crew members, they have to wear masks at all times. The cameramen will have to wear masks at all times. Any employee at the racetrack will be subject to individual temperatures taken every, I think, hour. And everybody has to have it before and after the start of the event. So they're really taking it seriously. And I have to say, this is one thing that could also be encouraging for the sport, being that they're going to be one of the first professional sports back in action. It could really garnish a lot more fan base that will watch it because they have nothing new to watch. So I feel like people will watch it even if they're not NASCAR fans because it's something new or something that's a return to normalcy.
Right, that's a good outlook on it. And I hope it does help the sport. So just so people that view this know, I haven't prepped you in any way, right? Like as far as preparing for what I'm about to do, you have no idea what I'm getting ready to ask, right?
No, but now I'm feeling a little bit nervous. So
don't be nervous. I just want to prove to viewers that as much about NASCAR than I think even some current day and even past commentators know about the sport. So, can you tell us who won the Daytona 500 in 1995?
1995. Well, the answer is Sterling Marlin. He drove the number 4 Kodak Chevrolet for Morgan McClure Motorsports. It's kind of a fascinating race because he won it back-to-back years. He also won it the year before in 1994, which makes him at that time one of only 3 drivers to win the Daytona 500 in consecutive years, the other 2 being Cale Yarborough and Richard Petty. But this year, when Denny Hamlin won the Daytona 500, he became the 4th driver to win that race consecutively because he won it last year and this year. But Sterling Marlin that year became the 3rd driver to win it in consecutive years. That was a pretty big accomplishment. even more so considering when Sterling Marlin won that race, that was only his second career win. So his first 2 wins were Daytona 500 wins, which is really impressive. And another thing, he's from Columbia, Tennessee, which isn't that far from where he went to college.
I want to challenge viewers that may not believe anything that you said to Google it. And I will ensure you that Steven just got all that right. Who won the race in Dover in 2004?
So in Dover, Delaware, there were 2 races in 2004. There was one in June, which was run on the 60th anniversary of D-Day. It was also the 1,000th points-paying race in the modern era of NASCAR. And I was actually there. It was a birthday present for my parents to go. And my childhood hero, Mark Martin, ended up winning. It was really, really cool because it didn't look like he was going to win. Looked like he was going to run second. Casey Kane looked like he was going to win. And with 19 laps to go, Casey Mears blew an engine, and then Casey Kane hit his oil and crashed, and my driver, Mark Martin, took the lead. And in the last 10 laps, he had to hold off the driver from where you currently live, Columbus, Indiana, Tony Stewart. Stewart had the fastest car all day, so I was so worried Stewart would beat him, but fortunately Martin was able to drive away and when he got the lead. And by the way, this is the car that he drove that day. It was the pearl white and blue Viagra Ford. Yes, please make fun of me. My favorite driver when I was a kid was sponsored by Viagra. We all know how hilarious that is.
Well, who won Pocono in 1987?
1987. Wow, we're really going back in time. So the spring race in Pocono 1987 is actually one of the most famous races. Although I feel like I tell you every race is famous because in my mind I feel like they are. But that race really was because the race was actually won by a guy named Tim Richmond. And a lot of people don't know who Tim Richmond is because he died in 1989 from AIDS, unfortunately, but the 80s was a bad time for that disease. But Tim Richmond had to set out the beginning of the 1987 season, which was sad because he was actually the favorite to win the 87 championship because the year before that in 1986, he had won the most races. But in 1987, due to health concerns, he was forced to sit out. And the first race he got to return was race number 12, which was that race at Pocono. And he ended up winning, which to win your first race back after being out from an illness is really, really pretty impressive. So that race, in my opinion, is very, very cool. But yeah, so Tim Richmond won that day. And Pocono, by the way, for those of you who don't know, it's one track that's not shaped like an oval. It's shaped like a triangle. It has 3 turns, so it's kind of unique.
I just want to do one more if you're okay with it, just to prove that you are the NASCAR wizard. Who won Darlington 1998?
Darlington 1998. So that particular year, there were 2 races. The Trans-South Financial 400, which would have been in March. Jeff Burton should have won. He led the most laps, but Dale Jarrett in the 88 Quality Care Ford Taurus ended up passing him late to win. So Dale Jarrett won. And then in the fall was the Southern 500, which is one of the 4 crown jewel races of NASCAR. And Jeff Gordon, who was really the king of NASCAR in the 90s, he put a whooping on the field that day, and Jeff Gordon won.
So there you go. That is why I will say that Steven Beckman is the man that I know that knows the most about NASCAR. And so if you're viewing this and you like NASCAR, I invite you to send him a friend request, and he would love to have another friend that talks NASCAR with him. I try to hang with him, but I struggle too. I've tried to get him into things that I enjoy as much as he enjoys NASCAR, like Survivor, and he hung with me a couple seasons, but he's got a lot going on, so he hasn't been able to stay with that.
I feel bad about the Survivor thing because the several seasons I watched that, I really did like it. Although I will say, I think it was the second season I watched it, I wasn't too impressed with the person who ended up winning. I didn't feel that that was the contestant who did the best over the course of the season. So I think that kind of left a bitter taste in my mouth. But I shouldn't be that way because there are like NASCAR races, for instance, that have bad outcomes, yet I still watch. So that's a bad excuse on my part. When's the next season start? I need to check it back out.
It's okay. It's okay. Because of COVID-19, just like most things, the next season has been delayed. So I don't know when it's gonna start. But don't worry about it. What I love about you, Steven, I love a lot of things about you, but what I love is you are all in to whatever you're doing, whether it's watching NASCAR, whether it's being a great friend, whether it's teaching, like you are all in. So I appreciate your dedication.
I try, I guess, but thank you, but thanks.
Share what led you to go into teaching.
I really always wanted to have some type of job or career field where I felt like I could help or make an impact on others. You know, similar to you, I mean, being a minister, you have a job where you really impact so many people, which that's really, you know, a very proud profession. I'm really proud of you for doing that. I know you're outstanding at it. Every time I've had the opportunity to hear you, you've done an amazing job. So I kind of wanted to do something like that. But my problem was, in my opinion, I never felt like I was that good at anything. So I had to find something that I thought I was at least semi-good at. And, well, I felt like I was good at knowing NASCAR knowledge, but I didn't think that would go anywhere. So I had to resort to my next option. And I felt like school was one thing I've always been good at. So I thought that's one place I could really help others and make a difference. So I decided to become a teacher. And it's actually interesting. I initially also wanted to be a teacher because I love public speaking. And I thought, well, being a teacher, you get to give a speech every day, you know, 6 periods a day for me right now. But it didn't take long to realize that the best part about being a teacher is the student relationships that you make. That part is super, super cool. And I've been very blessed to have a ton of students who have really impacted me, and many students that I still keep in touch with even if they've already graduated. So that's been a big deal to me, and I really, really appreciate having that opportunity. But being a teacher was definitely a great field and a great career decision. I'm very glad I went into it. And I've been very fortunate to work with a good school and have great students, and also work with a great team of fellow teachers. Although my fellow teachers, if they listen, they'll probably say that they imagine when I was a student in high school that I was probably the suck-up student, so they probably would say that about me, but they're still good friends of mine, so I'll forgive them.
So speaking of suck-up students, do you have a favorite student every year, or how do you go about that? Like, you know, a lot of teachers will say, well, you can't have favoritism, you can't show favoritism. What's your philosophy on that?
So obviously as a teacher, we can't really admit to ever having a favorite student, and we can't really show favoritism, although unfortunately I do see teachers who do show favoritism, which, you know, we really shouldn't. But I will also say as a teacher, it is impossible not to have students who you think more highly of than others, maybe students that you've developed closer relationships with. And I know for me, the students that I tend to bond with the most are the students who remind me, I know this sounds terrible, the students who remind me of myself when I was their age. Those type of students, it seems like I have just such a close-knit bond with. So that's really something. I don't know if I'd say I have an individual favorite student every year, but I'd say there's usually at least 10 students who I'm extremely close with that I would say would probably all say if you asked them that they were my favorite students. So, but with that being said, I do all I can to make sure that I give every student the same opportunities, the same amount of feedback. I really work hard on that. But I'd be lying if I didn't say there weren't some students who I just have a closer relationship with and stay connected with after they graduate. And I feel like if any teacher says they don't have favorites in that regard, I think they're stretching the truth.
Well, that makes sense. And I think that's true for like parents with kids. Like if they have multiple kids, you know, they don't necessarily have a favorite kid. but they may be closer to one than the others, just because sometimes you connect more with others than you do sometimes. So yeah, I understand, and I think that's true for any area in life. So I appreciate you speaking on that.
That's a great comparison. I think you're spot on there. I really, yeah, I think so. Very well said.
What do you teach now, and what do you enjoy most about teaching that subject?
I'm a secondary English teacher. So currently I teach 3 different classes, or at least this year I've taught 3 different classes: English 12, speech class, and AP writing composition, which is actually an IU college-based class. That class has probably been in some ways my favorite, because every student in there are definitely college-bound students. And with that, you have, a very in-depth thought process of work that they turn in. And it's also nice because when you have classroom discussions over reading assignments, I feel like the interpretation and comprehension levels are much higher for those students, which allows for much more in-depth thought when we have in-class conversations. So that's been very good. But I will say, from a teacher standpoint, that class also required a lot more grading. Being a college class, it had 8 essays, which I couldn't change that. That had to be exactly what IU required. So grading 8 essays were not fun. English 12, I really enjoy that class. Reason being, I basically got to create all of the curriculum for it. Really, nobody gave me any. I pretty much created all of it from day one. And I've kind of tailored that as I've gone forward. But I've kind of been able to do a lot of the things that I would like. For instance, the books we read in there are books that I find interesting. And I work really hard to tailor those to the actual students, to make them interesting for them. And a lot of students really appreciate that, and they find that fun. For instance, I'm a little embarrassed to admit, but one book we read is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And I had to work hard to get that approved through the school board, but I did. A lot of students who think they would hate that end up enjoying it because of the activities that we do in the class for it. For instance, the most popular is I actually created a Quidditch game. And if you've ever read the book or seen the movies, that's their actual sport, where they fly on broomsticks, and it's kind of a combination between basketball, football, and soccer. We actually play that game as a review activity for one day. And like, even kids who hate school absolutely love that. And I try to come up with at least 4 or 5 unique activities for that particular book that every student enjoys. And I'm fascinated every year when students tell me that they thought they would hate that book, actually really enjoyed it and found it fun. So I think that's good. And the reason why is because that's a book that can connect to a lot of students. I think people automatically assume that book is all about magic. But when I think about that, I ask my favorite Harry Potter trivia question, and that's, how many spells does Harry Potter say in the first book? He never says a single spell in the entire book. It's not really about magic. It's more about the things you experience while you grow up, making friends, making rivals, kind of seeking independence for the first time, facing challenges without the help of adults for the first time. Things that, you and I or any student had to deal with as we were going through school. And I think that's why students like it. They really find a connection with that. So it's really good. But I really work hard to try and have a more creative classroom setting in my English 12 class. And then my other class, speech, it's kind of cool. When I took that class over, I really wasn't given much direction to go in. So I kind of copied it off of a college speech class I took. And it's been very, very successful. And I feel like a lot of the students have really grown with their public speaking.
That's great. So, Steven, who inspires you, or who inspired you to be the wonderful teacher that you are today?
Wow, that's a tough question. Well, I mean, I'd like to say that there's been a lot of people who have inspired me in my whole life. I mean, obviously, you have to start first with my mom and dad. They've always inspired me to be the best that I could be. And I always want to work hard to try and make them proud. So hopefully they would be proud of me as a teacher. and how I do that. This one's going to sound kind of odd. My childhood favorite driver, Mark Martin, inspired me, and here's why. Even if he had a bad race, and trust me, he had a lot, he would always give the most kind-hearted interview, and he would never blame anybody for things that went wrong. He would always take responsibility and basically praise everyone who helped him and said that he will do better. That really was somebody who inspired me, because I thought, there's no sense blaming everybody. I need to try and do better and help others be better. So he was really inspirational. Obviously, good friends such as yourself, Tyler, who have always influenced me and inspired me to be my best. And seeing how successful you've been around other people has really been influential and inspiring. So congratulations to yourself. I would also have to say, you actually introduced me to a fellow teacher who has been very, very instrumental in making me want to become a good teacher, and that's Mr. Greg Lewis, who teaches at Columbus East. Outstanding teacher, to say the least. He really has inspired me, and I've even copied a few of the things that he does, specifically what he does on President's Day. I'll never live up to him, but I certainly try. Teachers I work with currently have inspired me, including one. His name is Mr. Brian Todd. He is the epitome of, I feel like, the greatest teacher ever. I just hope to one day be like him. He still inspires students today, and he's taught for almost 30 years. And he always does it with a smile on his face, which to me is really saying something. Teachers like Mr. Terry Hollis, he was very inspiring to me, really helped me a lot. Mrs. Lori Miller, I had her in math in 10th grade, I believe. Huge, huge help. I feel like one of the most positive people I've ever met, and I really try to copy a lot of my teaching methods off of her. Mrs. Minton, both of us had her. Very dedicated, very inspiring, provides a lot of feedback. I try to be like her, and I feel like I was only a decent English student until I met her, and I feel like she helped raise the bar to make me a better teacher, or a better student of English, which ultimately helped me become a better teacher. And I've had a few college professors, and I don't want to feel like I've left anyone out, but I'm sorry, these are just the first few that come to mind. But all of these people have really, really inspired me.
No, you've been inspired by a lot of people. That list is definitely not exhaustive. There's a lot, but I appreciate you sharing that. You've already mentioned that you are a big history buff, particularly when it comes to our presidents. When you were at Bellarmine, you took a class on the presidents, and you were the only one that was not a political science major, and you got the second highest grade in the class. So that's pretty incredible. What is it about presidential history that you appreciate?
There's a lot of things, but for starters, I feel like the different men who have held the position of commander-in-chief. I mean, that's such an important position. I mean, you're in control of all of the people in our country. You're in control of making decisions that affects everybody. And I realize that you have your presidential cabinet, and you have the Senate and the House of Representatives that you can talk with, and they prevent acts from becoming laws. I realize all of that. But the amount of power you have, the amount of things you have to do to try and help the American people during times of need, like right now during the COVID-19 concerns, the amount of pressure and stress they're under has just been, I couldn't even imagine it. I mean, I think about when I have a stressful day, and then I just think about what they're going through, and it's like, I mean, I shouldn't even complain. A stressful day for me is probably just like a normal 30 minutes for them. So the amount of pressure they're under. And I find it fascinating to learn how these different men, and hopefully one day women, have been able to, how they're able to deal with this, and how they're able to either successfully or unsuccessfully lead us through these tough times. And I hate to say unsuccessfully, but sadly there have been a few that have not been that successful. And to that point, I find it so fascinating to learn, based on the ones that in my opinion have been very successful, what was their upbringing like that got them to that decision-making process where they could make decisions for the whole country successfully. And it's interesting that there are some parallels in their upbringing, but there are some complete outliers. It's almost like you're either born to be in that type of leadership role or you're not. My students are always curious, am I a Republican or a Democrat? And I can't tell them. But I always tell them that my two favorite presidents, one is Harry Truman and one is Richard Nixon. One's a Republican, one's a Democrat. So obviously I support either one. So you'll never know.
Well, Stephen, I'm just, like I've said, I'm just very grateful for our friendship, grateful for your time just to chat and talk about different things. Is there anything that you would like to leave viewers with?
Everybody who has the opportunity to see Tyler, when we get to actually interact with people, tell him thank you for taking the time to do these videos. I've watched many of them. He's really taken a lot of time into this. So, I'm sure a lot of viewers and your Facebook friends really appreciate this. So we really appreciate that. I know I do. It's something interesting and fun to do. So please tell Tyler thank you for his hard work and efforts. And everyone who maybe watches this because they see me and they're not friends with Tyler necessarily, because I'm guessing he's going to tag me. If you ever get the opportunity, please say hello and interact with Tyler. He is one of the nicest people I've ever met and really an encouraging guy, real positive and uplifting. To people who I've had as students, for those of you who say I'm positive and uplifting, I've got nothing on this guy. So I've got a ways to go. But super great guy. I've been very fortunate to have him as a very close friend. I was even fortunate enough to be in your wedding. So I've been very blessed to have you as a good friend. So I'm just very thankful for that. And like I said, people, if you have the opportunity, tell him hello. He once told me his goal when we were in high school was to have, I think, a conversation with everyone in our high school. So I know he'd be thrilled to interact with you.
It's funny you say that, Stephen. I say the same thing about you to others. Like when you came to visit at church, I'm pretty sure I told the receptionist that, like, hey, if you think I'm positive, you think I'm encouraging, you got to meet him then. So I guess that's why we're friends. We're always trying to one up each other on being friendly and being kind, but that's just how we both are. And I just appreciate you, appreciate your friendship, appreciate the joy that you exude. As we close, is it okay if I pray with you?
Absolutely, man.
Lord, I thank you so much for Stephen. I thank you for our friendship. I thank you for all those that he has impacted and that he is impacting. Lord, I thank you for how you have gifted him to care for people and to know so much about different things, Lord, and how he connects with people because of his knowledge on so many things. Lord, I thank you for the teacher that he is, and I just pray that you would bless the rest of his school year, even though it's way different than any other school year. And I pray for his students. I pray for all his friends that are watching this. And Lord, we're just so thankful for the blessing to be able to do life with one another, that you have blessed us with friends, with family, and we're not alone in this life, especially in hard times like this where we have to be quarantined and that it's just a really interesting season of life. Thank you so much for Jesus, and I pray all this in his holy name. Amen.
Amen. Very well said. Very well said.
Thanks, Stephen. Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Thank you.